That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun hung low over Fort Bragg, casting long shadows across the dew-kissed parade ground. Sergeant Elena Vasquez stood at attention in her camouflage utilities, her boots planted firmly on the packed earth. The air carried the sharp scent of pine from the surrounding Carolina woods, mingled with the faint metallic tang of gun oil from the armory nearby. At her side, Rex, her German Shepherd partner, sat rigid, his black and tan coat gleaming under the early light. His ears twitched at the distant bark of another K9, but he held his position, eyes forward, every muscle tuned to Elena's subtle cues. "Platoon, attention!" the command barked from Captain Harlan Reed, a broad-shouldered officer with 20 years in Special Forces. His voice cut through the morning chill like a knife, echoing off the low barracks buildings. The unit snapped to, 6 handlers and their dogs, a tight formation of loyalty forged in sweat and silence. Elena felt the familiar pull in her shoulders, the weight of her gear. Radio clipped to her vest, leash coiled in her gloved hand, and the ever-present sidearm holstered at her hip. This was the 82nd Airborne's K9 detachment, elite search and rescue specialists who trained for the unseen threats, explosives in urban sprawl, missing personnel in hostile terrain. But today was standard procedure, obedience drills and scent work in the mock village just beyond the wire. Reed paced the line, his boots thudding rhythmically. "Handlers, report readiness." One by one, voices rose in crisp acknowledgement. "Vasquez, ready!" Elena's tone was steady, betraying none of the quiet ache in her knee from last week's field exercise. Rex's tail gave the slightest thump against the ground, a private signal of their bond, invisible to the others. They'd been paired for 3 years since her transfer from the medics. He wasn't just a dog, he was her extension, reading her pulse through the leash, alerting to her stress before she felt it herself. The drill commenced with precision. Scent assignment, narcotics simulation. A tech from the training cadre scattered hidden packets in the simulated compound, abandoned Humvees and plywood structures mimicking a forward operating base. The dogs deployed in pairs, muzzles low to the ground, sniffing the air currents. Rex moved like liquid shadow, his paws silent on the gravel. Elena followed at a measured pace, her commands whispered, "Search, Rex. Find it." The unit's rhythm was unbreakable, handlers in sync, dogs weaving through obstacles without a tangle. This was the order of their world. Chain of command, absolute, from Reed's orders down to the youngest private's salute. Deviation meant paperwork, reprimands, or worse, reassignment without your partner. By 0900 the exercise wrapped. Sweat beaded on Elena's forehead as she praised Rex with a firm pat and a treat from her pouch. "Good boy, heel." He pressed against her leg, warm and solid, his wet nose brushing her hand. The platoon regrouped for debrief, standing in a loose semicircle as Reed reviewed footage on a tablet. "Vasquez, your clear was 2 seconds off optimal. Tighten it." She nodded, absorbing the critique without argument. In this life, feedback was fuel, not insult. Loyalty here wasn't flashy, it was the unspoken pact, soldiers to unit, handlers to dogs, all under the flag. Off-duty hours blurred into base routine. Elena's quarters were a Spartan efficiency in the enlisted barracks. Shared wall with the armory's hum. She clocked out at 1600, leash in hand for Rex's evening run along the perimeter trail. The woods thickened here, leaves crunching underfoot, the air cooling with the promise of dusk. Civilians weren't common on post, but family housing edged the tree line. Spouses, dependents, the fragile civilian thread woven into military life. Elena kept her pace steady, Rex ranging ahead on a long lead, his nose questing for rabbits in the underbrush. It started as a distant cry, sharp and piercing through the rustle of branches. Elena froze, hand instinctively dropping to her radio. What the hell? The scream came again, female, frantic, laced with terror. Help! Somebody, please! It echoed from the direction of the family quarters, maybe 100 yards off trail. Rex's head snapped up, hackles rising, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Elena unclipped his lead in one fluid motion. Rex, such, go find. He bolted, crashing through the leaves with purpose, his training kicking in, not for narcotics or bombs, but the human distress he'd been conditioned to seek in rescue ops. She followed at a jog, heart pounding against her ribs, the scream cut off abruptly, replaced by muffled sobs. Bursting from the tree line, Elena emerged into a backyard patio, chain-link fence half open. A young woman, babysitter by the civilian jeans and ponytail, huddled on the grass, phone clutched in white-knuckled hands. The kid, he's gone. I turned away for a second and... the leaves. He was playing in the leaves. Her words tumbled out, eyes wild, pointing to a leaf-strewn flowerbed bordering the yard. Elena scanned the scene. Toys scattered, a sandbox half-filled, no sign of disturbance beyond the woman's panic. But protocol nagged. Civilians on base meant notifying MP first, not jumping in. Still, Rex was already at work, nose buried in the damp earth. Paws digging methodically. The babysitter stared, hope flickering. Is that a military dog? Can he help? Before Eleanor could respond, Rex stiffened, alerting with a sharp bark, his signal for find. He pawed at a spot beneath a pile of sodden oak leaves, unearthing something small and white. A child's sock, tiny, monogrammed with a cartoon truck, half buried in the soil. Elena knelt, pulse racing as the implications hit. This wasn't a game gone wrong. The sock was mud-caked, torn at the toe, as if dragged. Rex whined, circling back to her, eyes locked on hers in urgent plea. The babysitter gasped, scrambling forward. "That's Tommy's! He was right here!" Her voice broke, realization dawning. Elena's mind raced through channels. Report to command, secure the area. But the child's absence screamed immediate action. Duty pulled one way, protocol demanded she stand down, call it in without contamination. Conscience yanked the other. A life, small and vulnerable, hung in the balance. Rex pressed against her side, warm breath fogging the air, waiting for her lead. In that suspended moment, with the base's distant hum fading to nothing, Eleanor made her choice. She keyed her radio. "This is Vasquez, K9 unit. Possible missing dependent family quarter sector 3. Request immediate response." But as the static crackled back, she knew this was just the beginning. Rex's find wasn't random. It was a thread pulling at the seams of order, exposing something hidden in the shadows of routine. And in the military's rigid world, one sock could unravel everything. The military police arrived in under 2 minutes, their Humvee skidding to a halt on the gravel driveway, lights flashing silent blues without sirens to avoid base-wide alarm. 2 MPs, Sergeant Kowalski, a stocky veteran with a buzz cut and perpetual scowl, and Private Ramirez, fresh-faced and all elbows, piled out, hands on holsters, eyes scanning the yard like it was a potential IED site. The babysitter, whose name Elena learned was Mia Reynolds, 22 and part-time at the post exchange, stood trembling beside the flower bed, arms wrapped around herself against the encroaching dusk. Rex sat at Elena's heel, alert but calm, his nose still twitching toward the unearthed sock clutched in her gloved hand. "Vasquez," Kowalski barked, approaching with measured steps, his boots crunching leaves. "Report. What have we got?" He glanced at Rex, then back to her, the chain of command asserting itself even in chaos. Eleanor straightened, handing over the sock in a clear evidence bag she'd pulled from her vest pouch. Standard procedure for any find. "Off-duty run, sir," heard screams from this residence. Subject says the child, Tommy Ellis, age 4, dependent of Staff Sergeant Ellis, vanished while playing in the yard. Rex alerted here. She nodded to the disturbed earth, where the leaves lay scattered like a disrupted formation. Ramirez knelt by the bed, snapping photos with his phone, the flash cutting harsh against the fading light. Mia hovered, voice unsteady. "I swear he was right there. I was inside grabbing juice just a minute. When I came back, nothing, no cry, no toy left behind. Then your dog." She trailed off, eyes on Rex, who met her gaze with unwavering focus. Kowalski nodded curtly, keying his radio. "Dispatch, this is MP7. Confirm missing juvenile, Sector 3 family housing. Notify command and base alert if no visual in 5. Static hissed back. "Copy. Ellis quarters confirmed. Parents off post till 2000. Elena felt the weight of scrutiny, her pulse steady but insistent under her collar. Protocol was clear. K9 handlers didn't freelance on civilian matters without MP lead. She'd called it in, but deploying Rex without clearance. That skirted the line. Her initiative could be praised as quick thinking or flagged as overreach. Rex shifted, leaning into her leg, his warmth a silent anchor amid the gathering tension. She'd trained him for this. Human scent detection, the raw edge of search ops where seconds decided outcomes, but base rules prioritized containment. A missing kid on post meant child services, not a full K9 sweep unless escalated. Kowalski turned to Mia. "Ma'am, walk us through it. Exact timeline." She nodded, wiping her face with the sleeve. "Tommy's mum dropped him at 1500 for my shift. We played outside, sandbox, leaves piling up from the oak. He loves burying stuff like treasure. I went in at 16:30 for a snack. Door was open. I heard nothing. Came back, empty yard." Her voice cracked on the last word, and Ramirez jotted notes, his pen scratching like dry leaves. Elena watched Rex, who whined softly, pawing the air, a secondary alert, his way of saying the scent trail lingered. She resisted the urge to release him, command first. Word spread fast on a base like brag. Radios crackled, neighbors peeked from windows, curtains twitching in the row houses. By 1700, Captain Reed arrived, his SUV pulling up with the measured authority of rank. He stepped out in civvies, jeans and a polo that did little to soften his bearing, flanked by a base liaison from family services. "Vasquez," he said, voice low but edged. "Walk me." She complied, recounting the sequence while Rex trailed, nose to the ground. Reed's eyes narrowed at the sock. "Good find, but you unclipped him solo. Explain." "Instinct, sir," Elena replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. Screams indicated immediate distress. Rex is certified for SAR. Delay could have cost time. Reed rubbed his jaw, glancing at the MPs. Kowalski shrugged. "She called it in clean, Captain. No contamination." But Elena caught the undercurrent, Reed's protectiveness over the unit's rep. K9 involvement in a civilian incident could draw eyes. IG investigations, media if it went south. One wrong move, and her partner's certification, her own record, took the hit. As the sun dipped, casting the yard in long shadows, the group fanned out. Ramirez cordoned the area with tape, yellow against the green lawn, while Mia sat on the patio steps, head in hands. Elena's radio buzzed, deputy commander on the line. "Hold position, parents en route, no further action, till cleared." She acknowledged, clipping it back, but Rex grew restless, circling the fence line where it met the woods. His ears perked at a faint rustle. Squirrel, maybe, or something more. Elena knelt, hand on his collar. "Easy, boy. Wait it out." Staff Sergeant Ellis and his wife arrived in a rush, her face pale under the porch light that flickered on automatically. "Tommy," she cried, pushing past Kowalski toward the yard. Ellis, a wiry infantryman with desert scars on his knuckles, held her back. "What happened? Where's my son?" Mia stood, stammering apologies, but Eleanor stepped forward, Rex at her side. "Ma'am, sir, we're searching. Your babysitter heard nothing after he went missing. This was in the leaves." She held up the bagged sock, and Mrs. Ellis gasped, recognizing the monogram. He wore those today, oh God. Reed pulled Ellis aside, voices low, man to man, unit to unit. Elena overheard fragments. Routine check, no signs of entry. But the sock's off. Ellis's jaw tightened. If someone's taken him... The implication hung, unspoken. Abductions on base were rare, but when they hit, they shattered the illusion of safety within the wire. Family Services took Mia for a statement, her sobs echoing as they led her to a cruiser. Elena watched, a knot forming in her gut. This wasn't just a lost kid. The sock's tear suggested struggle, and Rex's agitation screamed unfinished business. By 1900, the scene was locked down, floodlights humming to life, casting stark relief on the disturbed earth. Reed approached Elena, his expression unreadable. "Stand by for debrief at 2200. Keep Rex off lead." She saluted, crisp and formal, but as he walked away, doubt crept in. Obeying meant waiting while a 4-year-old's trail cooled. Her conscience tugged. Rex had found the first clue. Denying him the search felt like betraying their bond, the trust that defined her role. The base's hum resumed around them, distant rotors whirring, a truck shifting gears on the access road. Order reasserted itself, but cracks showed, the kind that started with a scream and a buried sock, threatening to widen under the weight of what might lie buried next. Rex pressed close, his breath steady against her boot, eyes reflecting the lights like twin beacons in the night. Elena scratched his ear, whispering, "Hold on, partner. We're not done." In the military's unyielding structure, choices like hers didn't come without cost, but turning away now? That would cost more. The floodlights buzzed like distant hornets, their harsh glow turning the backyard into a stage of stark contrasts, shadows pooling under the patio eaves, the yellow tape fluttering in the night breeze. Elena stood at the edge of the cordon, Rex's leash taut in her hand, his body coiled with restrained energy. The air had cooled, carrying the earthy scent of turned soil and the faint, acrid whiff of exhaust from the idling MP vehicles. Staff Sergeant Ellis paced the driveway, his wife's quiet sobs muffled against his shoulder, while Captain Reed conferred with the Family Services liaison in low tones near the Humvee. Kowalski and Ramirez methodically gridded the yard, their flashlights sweeping in overlapping arcs, but the search felt contained, procedural, more form than fervor. Eleanor glanced at her watch. 1930. The debrief loomed at 2200, a formality that would dissect her actions under the fluorescent glare of the MP station. Protocol dictated she log off now, secure Rex in the kennels, and await assignment. But the sock's implications gnawed at her. The tear at the toe, the mud caked deeper than a child's play could explain. Rex whined again, low and insistent, his nose questing toward the fence, where it abutted the woods. She'd seen that alert before, in training sims for lost hikers, in the dusty trails of deployment, where scents lingered like ghosts. Denying it felt wrong, a fracture in the bond that had carried her through sandstorms and night watches. "Captain," she said, stepping forward as Reed broke from his conversation. Her voice was even, respectful, but carried the weight of conviction. "Rex is picking up residual scent. Permission to extend the track along the perimeter. 5 minutes, contained to the fence line." Reed's eyes flicked to her, then to the dog, assessing. Ellis paused his pacing, hope sharpening his features. "If he can find something..." Mrs. Ellis lifted her head, eyes red-rimmed but pleading. Reed hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck, a rare tell of internal debate. Negative, Vasquez. MPs have lead. Your involvement's already borderline without clearance from JAG. The refusal landed like a clipped order, final and unyielding. Eleanor nodded, saluting sharply, but inside, the moral pull tightened. Duty meant obedience, the chain that held the unit together. Morality whispered of the child's small hand that might have clutched that sock in fear. Rex pressed against her leg, his warmth a reminder of their silent pact. No words, just action, when lives hung in the balance. As the group dispersed, MPs wrapping their grid, family services escorting the Ellises to a waiting van for statements, Elena lingered, ostensibly to collect her gear. The yard emptied, save for Ramirez coiling tape under Kowalski's watchful eye. The woods beyond the fence rustled softly, leaves whispering secrets in the wind. She knelt by Rex, murmuring, "Stay," and unclipped his leash with a practiced flick. It was defiance, small but seismic, a handler's instinct overriding the ranks. "Such quietly," she breathed. He moved like smoke, slipping under the fence gap, nose to the leaf litter, tracking the invisible trail that protocol ignored. Elena followed at a crouch, heart thudding against her vest, the beam of her penlight cutting narrow paths through the underbrush. The woods thickened quickly, pines crowding in with their resinous tang, roots snaking across the damp earth. Rex wove ahead, pausing at a snapped twig, then a scuff in the moss, subtle markers of passage. 50 yards in, he stiffened, barking once, sharp and contained. Elena caught up, kneeling beside him as he pawed at a cluster of ferns. There, half buried under a fallen branch, lay a child's shoe, tiny, Velcro strapped, the blue canvas smeared with dirt and a smear of what looked like pine sap. Not dropped casually, wedged, as if kicked off in haste or struggle. She bagged it carefully, her gloved fingers trembling slightly, despite the discipline drilled into her. This was evidence, real and escalating. Abduction markers on a military post, where security cameras blanked the family sectors for privacy. Rex circled back, whining, his eyes locking on hers with urgent trust. Elena's mind raced. Return now. Hand it over clean or push further. The base's edge was near. Beyond lay the perimeter road, then civilian access points. Conscience urged continuation. Tommy's face imagined from the sock size, small and scared in the dark. A beam pierced the trees. Ramirez sweeping the fence line. "Vasquez, you out there?" His voice carried authority laced with concern. Elena froze, clipping the leash as Rex returned to heel. "Affirmative, checking perimeter for prints." She emerged, shoe in bag, face composed. Ramirez's eyes widened. "What the? Captain's gonna have your hide." But he radioed it in, and within minutes the woods lit up. Additional MPs, floodlights probing the canopy, Reed's SUV crunching over roots. The reckoning unfolded swiftly, witnesses multiplying. Kowalski logging the find, Ellis overhearing from the driveway and demanding involvement, neighbors drawn by the lights murmuring about that K9 handler pushing boundaries. Reed pulled Elena aside, voice taut. "You were ordered to stand down. This skirts insubordination." She met his gaze steadily. "Sir," Rex alerted, "delay risked the trail. It's about the kid, not the rules." Tension crackled. Loyalty to unit versus the moral imperative that defined her service. Word rippled up the chain. Base commander notified, JAG on standby. One handler's choice had cracked the facade of routine, forcing the institution to confront its blind spots. By 2100, the search expanded. K9 teams from adjacent units deploying, helicopters thumping overhead in low sweeps, their downdraft scattering leaves like confetti. Elena and Rex were sidelined to the MP staging area, a folding table under a pop-up tent, where coffee steamed in styrofoam cups. She praised him quietly, scratching behind his ears as he lay at her feet, exhausted but vigilant. The shoe's discovery bought time, but scrutiny loomed. Her record, Rex's certification, the unit's standing. Yet in the quiet intervals, amid radio chatter and barked coordinates, Elena felt the stir of something larger, her act rippling outward, challenging the rigid lines between order and justice. As the night deepened, with searchers fanning into the woods and the base holding its breath, the cost of integrity sharpened into focus. One small shoe, unearthed by loyalty unbound by leash, had ignited a reckoning that no protocol could contain. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach. The command tent hummed with the low murmur of voices and the intermittent crackle of radios, its canvas walls straining against the night's chill under the floodlight's glare. Elena sat on a metal folding chair at the edge of the staging area. Rex curled at her feet, his flanks rising and falling in steady rhythm despite the chaos. The air inside carried the stale scent of instant coffee and damp wool from the MP's jackets, mingling with the sharper tang of printer ink from the stack of forms on the central table. Captain Reed stood across from her, arms crossed, his face etched with the fatigue of a long shift, while Major Harlan Graves, base JAG liaison, a lanky officer with wire-rimmed glasses and a clipboard, flipped through notes under the harsh bulb overhead. "Vasquez," Reed began, his tone measured but laced with steel, "walk us through the woods again. Every step." Elena nodded, recounting the sequence without embellishment. The unclipped leash, Rex's track, the shoe's location amid the ferns. She kept her voice even, eyes forward, as if briefing a post-mission after-action review. Graves scribbled, his pen pausing at key points, the snapped twig, the sap smear, while Kowalski leaned against a support pole, arms folded, his scowl deepening. "You knew the order, Sergeant. Stand down meant stand down. That's not instinct. That's a choice." The words landed heavy, echoing the core tension of her service, the line between proactive duty and unauthorized action, where one misstep could cascade through careers. Elena felt Rex stir, his nose nudging her boot, a subtle reminder of their partnership, the trust that had no rank or rulebook. "Sir," she replied, "the alert was clear. Scent trails degrade after dark. Waiting meant potential loss." Reed's jaw tightened. He knew the truth of it, had seen K9 saves in theater turn the tide, but protocol was the military's spine. Bend it once and fractures spread. Outside, the search pulsed onward. Helicopters thumped in lazy circles over the tree line, their spotlights carving white swaths through the canopy, while ground teams, additional handlers from the 82nd support units, gridded the perimeter with flashlights and GPS markers. Staff Sergeant Ellis hovered at the tent flap, granted observer status by virtue of his rank and the raw plea in his eyes. His wife waited in a base family center van, sedated lightly for shock, but he'd refused to leave, his infantryman's resolve fixed on the maps pinned to a corkboard. "Any hits?" he asked, voice rough from disuse. Ramirez, manning the radio, shook his head. "Negative so far, but that shoe's got forensics en route from Fayetteville PD. Prints, fibers." The discovery had escalated everything. By 22:30, the initial debrief stretched into interrogation territory, Graves probing for intent. "Did you consider calling for backup before entering the woods?" Elena met his gaze steadily. "Affirmative, sir, but Rex's behavior indicated immediacy. In SAR doctrine—" Graves cut her off with a raised hand. "Doctrine applies under command, Sergeant. This is family housing, not a hot zone. Your actions could compromise evidence chain." The implication hung. If Tommy Ellis was found safe, her overreach might be overlooked as zeal. If not, it painted her as reckless, tainting the unit's precision. Rex shifted, whining softly, drawing eyes. Ellis knelt briefly, hand hovering near the dog's head without touching, respect for the handler's space. "He good at this?" Elena nodded, Best I've worked with, trained for multi-scent discrimination. He doesn't false alert. The Major cleared his throat, redirecting. We'll verify. For now, you're benched. Report to kennels at 600 for full log. Dismissed, Elena rose, saluting crisply before leading Rex out into the cooling air. The base felt alive with subdued urgency. Patrols doubled on the gates, whispers filtering through the ranks about a possible insider threat. Family quarters, once a sanctuary, now crawled with quiet suspicion. Back at her barracks, the armory's distant hum was her only company as she settled Rex in his crate, the metal door clicking shut with finality. She stripped off her utilities in the dim light of her quarters, the fabric heavy with woodsy dampness, and reviewed the night's weight. Her knee ached from the crouch in the ferns, a reminder of limits, but sleep evaded her. Protocol had saved lives through structure, yet tonight it had nearly stalled one. The moral calculus twisted. Obedience preserved the institution, but compassion demanded breach. Rex's soft breathing from the adjacent room anchored her, loyalty unyielding, a mirror to her own. Dawn broke grey and mist-shrouded. The parade ground slick with dew as Elena reported to the K9 center. The handler's bay smelled of kibble and disinfectant, dogs stirring in their runs with muffled barks. Captain Reed waited by the training logs, a fresh pot of coffee steaming on the counter. Vasquez in my office. No anger now, just the weary pragmatism of command. Inside the cramped space, posters of scent cones and alert postures on the walls. He gestured to a chair. Forensics prelim on the shoe. No blood, but fibers match the sock's cotton. Saps from local pine, trail points east, toward the access road. Elena's pulse quickened. Permission to redeploy Rex, sir. Control track from the fence. Reed leaned back, fingers drumming the desk. Jag's reviewing. Your call last night bought us ground, but it exposed gaps. Why no cameras in family sectors? Base commands pushing for audit. He paused, eyes appraising. Ellis cornered me at 0400, wants you on point. Says if anyone's bringing his boy home, it's the dog that found the sock. The admission carried layers, unit solidarity overriding protocol, a quiet nod to her judgment. By 800, clearance came via encrypted memo, limited K9 engagement under MP oversight. The team assembled at the wood's edge, Elena and Rex, Kowalski coordinating, 2 techs with scent kits. Mrs. Ellis stood at a distance, clutching a photo of Tommy, gap-toothed smile, truck toy in hand, her face a mask of restrained hope. Thank you, she murmured as Elena passed. The words simple but profound in their trust. Rex took the lead once more, nose to the dew-kissed leaves, picking up the faint human trace amid the pine needles and loam. The track wove deeper, skirting a drainage ditch where water gurgled softly, then veering toward a service path rarely patrolled. Rex alerted at a discarded juice box. Tommy's brand, per Mia's statement. Half-crushed under boot prints that forensics would later match to civilian treads. Elena bagged it, her commands whisper soft. Good find. Heal. But as the team advanced, a new tension emerged. Radio chatter from the gate log reported an unauthorized vehicle exit at 16:45 yesterday. A blue sedan, no plates logged. Driver matching no base ID. Kowalski keyed his mic. Command, possible POI, expanding to off-post. The public reckoning loomed larger now, the incident breaching the wire, drawing civilian eyes. Media vans idled at the main gate by noon, reporters sniffing for the missing military kid angle. Reed fielded calls from public affairs, his voice clipped. No comment, active investigation. Elena felt the ripple. Her defiance had ignited scrutiny, forcing the institution to adapt, to question its own seams. As the sun climbed, burning off the mist, Rex paused at a chain-link gap near the road, barking insistently. There, tangled in barbed wire, fluttered a scrap of fabric, a child's shirt cuff, Blue and monogram TE. Elena's breath caught. The trail was live, pulling them toward answers. But with witnesses multiplying, locals gathering beyond the perimeter, flashes from telephoto lenses, the cost sharpened. Her choice had transformed a routine off-duty run into a symbol, testing not just her conscience, but the military's capacity for justice beyond orders. In the quiet beat before the next command, Rex looked to her, eyes steady, their bond, the unbreaking thread amid the unraveling. The scrap of fabric caught the midday sun like a fleeting signal, its blue threads frayed against the rusted barbs of the chain-link fence. Elena crouched low, gloved hand steady as she snipped it free with wire cutters from her vest, the metallic snick echoing softly in the underbrush. Rex sat rigid beside her, his alert bark fading to a vigilant huff, nostrils flaring at the faint mingled scents clinging to the cuff, child sweat, pine resin, and something sharper, like fear-soured earth. The service path stretched beyond, gravel crunching under the team's boots, as Kowalski directed the techs to fan out, their GPS units beeping coordinates into the humid air. The base perimeter hummed with restrained activity. Distant patrols in Humvees rumbling along the access road, the low throb of a Black Hawk circling overhead, its rotors slicing through the thickening haze. "Bag it and tag," Kowalski ordered, his voice clipped over the radio static. "Vasquez, hold Rex, no further without confirmation." Elena complied, sealing the cuff in an evidence pouch, her fingers brushing the monogram, TE. A stark reminder of the small life trailing these clues. The find escalated the urgency. Forensics would confirm it soon, but the unauthorized sedan from the gate log loomed larger, a civilian breach piercing the base's fortified shell. Mrs. Ellis watched from the tree line, her silhouette framed by the pop-up tent where public affairs now managed the growing cluster of reporters beyond the wire. Their cameras trained like scopes, flashes popping intermittently, turning the search into a spectacle that protocols strained to contain. Reed arrived shortly after, his SUV pulling up with a gravel spray, stepping out to confer with Kowalski in terse whispers. Elena caught fragments, Jags breathing down, media's calling it an inside job. The captain's eyes met hers briefly, a nod of reluctant acknowledgement for the cuff, but shadowed by the weight of command. Her unauthorized woods entry last night had set this in motion, rippling scrutiny up the chain, base commander issuing memos on K9 protocols, family services auditing babysitter clearances. Loyalty to the unit demanded she absorb the fallout silently, yet the moral pull intensified. Tommy's trail was cooling with every procedural delay, and Rex's instincts, honed in silence, outpaced the bureaucracy. By 1300, the team redeployed under strict oversight, Elena and Rex on a short leash, literally and figuratively, trailing the path toward the access road. The air grew heavier, laced with the diesel exhaust of passing trucks and the earthy dampness rising from a nearby culvert. Rex moved methodically, pausing at a puddle where paw prints mingled with small sneaker treads, his whine low and insistent. "Alert here," Elena reported, kneeling to sample the water's edge with a sterile swab. The text documented, but Kowalski waved off extension. Road civilian jurisdiction, Fayetteville PD's taking lead off post. Ellis, granted limited access as the father, clenched his fists at the fence. "My boy's out there. Let the dog work." The conflict crested in the staging tent, where Graves from JAG reconvened the group under the canvas flap's dim light. Maps sprawled across the table, marked with the sock, shoe, and cuffs positions forming a jagged line eastward. Reporters' voices filtered through, muffled by the perimeter guards. "Military cover-up? Sources say K9 handler acted alone." Elena stood at attention, Rex at heel, as Graves addressed her directly. "Sergeant, your initiative uncovered these items, but it bypassed chain. Explain why you didn't defer to MPs fully." Her response was measured, her voice steady amid the tense close air. Sir, time-sensitive scent work. Doctrine prioritizes rapid response in SAR. The child's safety outweighed orders? Graves interjected, glasses glinting. This isn't theater, it's home front. Your actions invite lawsuits, media frenzy. The institution bends for no one. Reed shifted uncomfortably. His loyalty torn. Defending his handler meant challenging the legal framework that shielded them all. Ellis spoke up from the corner, rank lending weight. With respect, Major, that dog's found more in an hour than grids all night. If Vasquez stands down, we're chasing ghosts. The room tensed, witnesses to the fracture, obedience as the military's bedrock, compassion as its quiet rebel. Outside, a news chopper buzzed low, its downdraft rattling the tent stakes, amplifying the public eye, now fixed on their deliberations. Elena felt the scrutiny like a physical weight, her knee throbbing from the prolonged crouch, but Rex's steady presence grounded her. Their bond, forged in endless drills under Carolina rains and desert suns, transcended ranks, no salute required, just mutual trust. As the meeting adjourned with a compromise, limited joint-op with PD, Elena under direct supervision, the moral test deepened. Redeploying meant proving her judgment, but one false step could end her career, reassign Rex to a new handler, severing the loyalty that defined her service. The joint team crossed into civilian turf by 1400, the access road flanked by strip malls and pine thickets, where base security blurred into county lines. Fayetteville PD's unmarked cruisers idled, Detective Harlan Voss, a grizzled sergeant with a notepad and skeptical squint, coordinating with Kowalski. "Your dog's lead?" Voss asked Elena, eyeing Rex with professional curiosity. She nodded, releasing him on a 20-foot track line, the dog's paws padding softly on the asphalt shoulder. The air shifted here, carrying fast food grease and exhaust, but Rex quartered steadily, alerting at a roadside ditch where weeds choked a storm grate. Pawing frantically, he uncovered a toy truck, plastic, cartoon wheels matching the sock's monogram, wheels caked in red clay from off-base soil. Voss whistled low, bagging it himself. "Good boy. This ties to the juice box fibers." The find propelled them forward, PD choppers joining the aerial sweep, but media trailed like shadows, vans from rally affiliates parking along the highway, anchors narrating live. A military K-9's defiance uncovers clues in the Tommy Ellis disappearance. Eleanor's face appeared in snippets, blurred for OPSEC, but the narrative spun, lone handler versus rigid command, her act sparking calls for reform in base security. Reed radioed from the tent, "Public affairs is fielding heat. Stay clean, Vasquez." As dusk approached, the trail veered into a wooded lot behind an abandoned warehouse, Rex's barks echoing off cinder-block walls. Elena's heart raced, commands whispered, "Such steady." The team closed in, flashlights piercing the gloom, when a faint cry pierced the silence. Not a child's, but a muffled shout from Voss's unit securing the perimeter. Tension spiked, possible suspect vehicles spotted, blue sedan matching the gate log, abandoned in the undergrowth. MPs and PD converged, weapons drawn in disciplined formation, the air electric with restrained adrenaline. Elena held Rex back, his growl vibrating through the leash as the reckoning unfolded. Her choices had bridged worlds, military precision meeting civilian chaos, forcing institutional adaptation. Graves monitored from a command post, logging every move, while Ellis arrived in a PD escort, face etched with desperate hope. The cost mounted, her record under review, unit protocols under audit. But in the beam of tactical lights, the moral imperative shone clearer. One handler's conscience, amplified by a dog's unerring nose, was reshaping the response, turning personal defiance into a catalyst for broader justice. Night fell fully, stars pricking the sky above the warehouse as searchers combed the interior, radios crackling updates. Elena scratched Rex's ear in the quiet lull. his wet nose pressing her hand. Their partnership, silent and profound, had cracked the system's rigidity, proving that true duty sometimes demanded the courage to lead from the shadows. The warehouse loomed like a forgotten relic on the edge of Fayetteville's industrial sprawl, its corrugated metal walls scarred by years of rust and kudzu vines snaking through cracks. Floodlights from PD cruisers and MP transports pierced the darkness, casting elongated shadows across the cracked asphalt lot where the blue sedan sat askew, its driver's door ajar and engine cooling with faint ticks. Elena held Rex's leash firm, the dog's muscles taut under her gloved hand, his ears pricked toward the structure's yawning entrance. The air hung heavy with the scent of stale oil and overgrown weeds, undercut by the acrid bite of tactical flashlights and the low hum of generators powering the lights. Voss directed his team in a tight wedge formation, weapons low but ready, while Kowalski mirrored from the military side, his MPs fanning out to secure the perimeter. "Clear the exterior first," Voss called, his voice steady over the radio net shared between agencies. Elena scanned the lot, her training kicking in. Assess angles, cover points, the silent calculus of entry. The sedan's plates were civilian, unregistered, but a quick VIN check via dispatch confirmed no ties to base personnel, yet the gate log's timestamp matched, 16:45, just after Mia's brief absence. Rex whined softly, pulling toward the undergrowth where the vehicle had plowed through brush, his nose questing for the human traces that humans overlooked. Elena knelt, murmuring, "Easy, partner, wait for the word." Her knee protested the motion, a dull throb from the day's crouches, but she ignored it, eyes locked on Reed, who stood with Graves at the command vehicle, their faces illuminated by a laptop screen displaying drone feeds. The joint sweep commenced methodically, PD breaching the side door with a ram, the thud echoing like a muffled drumbeat, followed by shouts of "clear" in overlapping sectors. Elena's radio crackled. "Voss, K9, bring him in on the main floor. Sent confirmation needed." She rose, clipping a fresh track line, and entered behind the wedge. The warehouse's interior, a cavern of stacked pallets and dust-shrouded machinery, air thick with the musty tang of neglect. Flashlight beams danced across concrete floors etched with oil stains, revealing scattered debris. An overturned crate, a child's sippy cup glinting under a beam, Tommy's by the monogrammed lid, half filled with curdled juice. Elena's pulse quickened, but she kept her breathing even, channeling the discipline of countless drills. Rex deployed with precision, quartering the space in controlled arcs, his paws padding silently over grit. He paused at a pallet stack, alerting with a sharp sit and stare, nose pointing to a narrow gap behind. "Contact," Elena reported, voice calm amid the team's tension. Voss signaled two officers who edged forward, prying the wood aside with crowbars that scraped like nails on chalkboard. Dust motes swirled in the beams as they revealed a makeshift alcove. Blankets rumpled on the floor, a half-eaten granola bar wrapper, and, tucked in the corner, a small backpack, zipper ajar, spilling crayons and a stuffed bear. No child, but the signs screamed recent occupancy, the air still holding a faint sweet trace of baby shampoo. Ellis, restricted to the lot but listening via earpiece, radioed in hoarse, "That's his bear, blue one from deployment care packages." His words cut through the static, a father's raw edge piercing the procedural veil. Graves noted it all on his tablet. The JAG's presence a constant reminder of the scrutiny. Elena's initial defiance, now amplified under dual jurisdictions, every move logged for potential tribunals. Reed pulled her aside near a support beam, his whisper urgent. "This is blowing up, Vasquez. Public Affairs reports national pickups, CNN's framing it as military negligence. Your Woods runs the hook." She nodded, meeting his gaze. "Understood, sir, but Rex is on it. Denying him now loses the thread." Loyalty clashed again. To command's caution, or to the bond that had unearthed the sock, shoe, cuff, and now this. The search intensified, teams methodically dismantling the interior, while K9 units from PD joined, their handlers coordinating with Elena in clipped exchanges. Rex hit another alert near a rear loading dock, pawing at a grate leading to a sub-level, his bark insistent against the metal. Voss authorized the breach, welders sparking blue arcs to cut it free, the ozone scent sharp in the confined space. Below lay a crawl space, dim and cobwebbed, where a beam revealed scuff marks on the walls, small handprints in dirt, fresh enough to raise the team's pulse. Possible hide site, Kowalski broadcast, his scowl replaced by focused intensity. Elena fed Rex a scent article from the backpack, the bear's fur, and he dove in, emerging minutes later with a muffled whine, dragging a tiny sneaker, mate to the one from the woods, sole worn but unmistakable. Forensics swarmed, gloved hands bagging and photographing under the relentless lights. While Voss pieced the narrative, the sedan likely a stalker's vehicle, no base ties, but proximity suggesting opportunity. Media encircled the warehouse, their vans a ring beyond the cordon, reporters shouting questions that public affairs deflected with stonewall silence. Elena caught glimpses on a monitor, headlines scrolling, military dog leads to breakthrough in base child vanishing. Her face anonymized, but the story spun her as the rogue handler whose conscience cracked the case, sparking online debates on protocol versus humanity. Graves pulled Reed aside, voice low. This invites reform pushes, enhanced family sector surveillance, K9 integration in domestic ops, your units in the spotlight. As midnight approached, the alcove yielded more. A discarded phone, burn a model, its last ping tracing to the warehouse grid. Tex cracked it preliminarily, no calls but photos. Blurry shots of family quarters, time-stamped days prior. Stalker confirmed, the moral weight shifting. Eleanor's choice hadn't just found clues, it exposed systemic gaps, the illusion of safety within the wire. Ellis arrived under escort, kneeling by the bear with trembling hands. His salute to Elena later formal but lingering, eyes conveying unspoken gratitude. You didn't wait, neither will we for the bastard who took him. The team pressed on, Rex tracking faint scents to the sedan's trunk, empty but lined with blanket fibers matching the alcove. Voss coordinated with FBI now, the case federalizing, but Elena felt the toll, exhaustion in her limbs. The ethical strain of bending rules under watching eyes. Reed debriefed her at the lot's edge, stars wheeling overhead. Jags holding off on reprimand, for now. Your integrity's noted, but it costs. Unit audit incoming. She saluted, Rex leaning into her, his warmth a quiet affirmation amid the institutional churn. Dawn crept in grey, the warehouse a hive of continued sweeps. As the reckoning broadened, Elena's act had ignited calls for change, briefings on K9 protocols circulating up the chain, whispers of policy tweaks to blend compassion with command. In the quiet between alerts, with Rex's steady breath sinking her own, she sensed the transformation, one handler's defiance, rooted in loyalty, forging a legacy where duty and conscience converged, reshaping the ranks from within. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Elena Vasquez reach those who still believe in honor. The warehouse's sub-level crawl space yielded its final secrets under the relentless probe of flashlights and forensic vacuums, the air thick with dust and the faint, cloying residue of confinement. Elena knelt at the edge of the grate, Rex's harness clipped short to keep him from plunging back into the dim confines, his tongue lolling slightly from the exertion. The team's voices echoed muffled through the concrete, Voss coordinating with FBI agents now embedded in the op, their radios overlapping in a symphony of clipped affirmations. By 0200, the breakthrough came. A hidden compartment behind a rusted panel, pried open to reveal not just more of Tommy's belongings, a damp blanket, a scribbled drawing of a truck, but the boy himself, curled small and silent in the corner, eyes wide but unharmed, his tiny frame trembling as medics extracted him with gentle efficiency. "Tommy Ellis secured," Voss broadcast, his voice cracking the tension like a released breath. Elena's hand tightened on Rex's lead, a surge of relief flooding her chest, sharp and unbidden amid the discipline. The child blinked up at the lights, clutching the stuffed bear one of the agents handed him, his whisper barely audible. "Doggy found me." Mrs. Ellis rushed from the family center under escort, collapsed to her knees at the warehouse threshold, tears carving tracks through the grime on her face as paramedics guided her son into her arms. Ellis stood sentinel nearby, his salute to the team formal, but his nod to Elena profound, a silent acknowledgement that transcended ranks. The extraction unfolded with military precision, blended into civilian protocol. Tommy whisked to the base hospital for evaluation, the sedan towed for full forensics, the burner phone's data yielding a suspect profile. A disgruntled ex-contractor with peripheral base access, grudge-fueled and opportunistic, his prints on the sippy cup sealing the case. By dawn, as the floodlights dimmed and the media cordon swelled with national outlets, the narrative solidified. Elena and Rex were sidelined to the command vehicle, the dog's head resting on her boot, his exhaustion mirroring her own in the quiet aftermath. Graves, the JAG liaison, approached with a tablet in hand. His expression shifted from scrutiny to measured respect. "Preliminary review. Your actions, while unorthodox, directly contributed. No formal charges." Reed joined them, coffee steaming in his grip, the morning mist curling around the warehouse like a veil lifting. Base Command's issuing a stand-down on the audit, for now, but it's sparking changes. Family sectors getting camera pilots, K9 cross-training with PD formalized. Your call in the woods, it's the catalyst. Elena nodded, absorbing the words without fanfare, her gaze on Rex, who met her eyes with unwavering calm. The cost lingered. Nights of debriefs ahead, her record annotated with a commendation edged in caution, but the ripple extended. Handlers across Bragg whispering of the Vasquez Protocol, a shorthand for when conscience demands breach. Mentorship sessions now weaving ethical dilemmas into routine drills. Word cascaded through the ranks by midday, the parade ground alive with subdued murmurs as units rotated through briefings. Captain Harlan Reed addressed the K9 detachment in the training bay, the scent of kibble and polished boots grounding the moment. "What Sergeant Vasquez did wasn't rebellion. It was the core of our oath. Protect the vulnerable, adapt to the threat." Elena stood at the rear, Rex at heel, her utilities crisp despite the sleepless hours. Younger handlers, privates like Ramirez, now rotated to support, eyed her with quiet awe, questions bubbling in the post-brief huddle. "How'd you know to push?" She kept it simple, voice steady. "Listen to your partner. Rules save lives, but instinct finds them." The exchange marked her shift, from handler under orders to quiet mentor, her story etched into the unit's lore, a case study for when loyalty to life overrides the chain. The institutional response unfolded methodically over the following weeks. Base Command circulated memos on enhanced domestic response protocols, integrating K9 assets into family services simulations, the rigid hierarchy bending just enough to incorporate human and K9 judgment. Eleanor's knee healed under PT, but the deeper transformation settled in quieter ways. Ellis inviting her to Tommy's recovery barbecue, the boy shyly offering Rex a treat, his small hand steady now. "Thank you, doggy," he said, and Elena felt the weight lift. The moral tension resolved not in triumph, but in the steady rhythm of return to duty. Publicly, the case drew measured attention. Public affairs releases framing it as interagency success, with Elena's role anonymized to K9 team lead. Yet within the wire, she became a symbol, the handler who unearthed truth from leaves and shadows, proving that integrity's cost, though steep, forges stronger seams. Reed pulled her aside one evening on the perimeter trail, the pines whispering overhead. "You've changed how we train, not by breaking rules, but by showing when they need flexing." She saluted, Rex ranging ahead on his lead, the bond between them unbroken, a testament to loyalty's quiet power. In the end, as the base resumed its disciplined hum, boots on concrete at Reveille, radios crackling with routine checks, Eleanor's defiance rippled into legacy. The military, ever rigid, learned through her that true order embraces the moral courage to protect its own, one alert at a time. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching. The case of the babysitter screamed for help. The K9 found a small sock buried beneath the leaves. See you in the next one. Under the Carolina pines, where leaves once hid a child's fear, discipline and devotion wove a legacy stronger than any chain of command.